This is Capsule on liveandlimbo.com. My name is Sean Chen.
And I am Andreas Babiolakis. This is an adventure to music, film, and pop culture.
How's it going, Andreas?
It's going all right. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Also joining the show today is our music editor, Dakota Arsenault. How are you, man?
That still sounds great to hear. I'm doing great.
Getting used to the title?
I think so, yeah.
Exploit powers yet?
Still new, but totally, yeah. I used it to get a prime reservation at Eastside Mario's.
Whoa. Did they give you free garlic bread? I think they always do anyway.
They did, yeah. Although the table next to me also did, so, that just might be what their policy is.
We'll just say you got it because you're the music editor.
All right.
Anyway, so this week we have a packed show. Of course, the big news this week was the sad, very bittersweet passing of David Bowie, numerous other celebrities as well, the Golden Globe winners, and the lead up to the Oscars. And so, Andreas, you did a fabulous piece, tribute and memorial to David Bowie, and we'll put the show notes in the link for sure. We'll get to you in a second, but I know, Dakota, you are really fond of everything that Bowie's has done for the music world and maybe for you personally. So maybe do you want to just tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, sure. I think, David Bowie is someone that everyone either directly or indirectly grew up with. It wasn't like when I was young he was the music that my parents was listening to, but it was kind of impossible not to at least hear the bigger hits, whether it be, Space Odyssey or his song that he did with Queen, Under Pressure, or any number of his other, well-known songs. They were just sort of ubiquitous and everywhere. And, as I grew older, realizing the importance in gaining much more of a reverence towards him, it definitely was not only shocking but very sad to hear about. As everyone should probably already know by now, his sickness was not exactly well known. Only a few people very close to him seemed to know, and that's why his last album, Black Star, was sort of seen as intentionally his farewell album. He knew that it was his last piece, but we did not. And so, as Andreas rightly wrote about in both the tribute and the Black Star album review, there's a whole lot more going on to that now, since we know what exactly he was dealing with. So that made it even more touching and sad, and adding a lot more emotion to the lyrics. But that's not something that David Bowie ever really struggled with. Mm-hmm. His lyrics were always, filled with either very personal anecdotes or, really great cultural observations, or even just, really good turns of phrases. And as much as I really did enjoy your tribute to him, Andreas, I think one of the things that you neglected to point out was his impact on popular music. Because I don't think, there's a single genre today that, isn't
touched by it.
There's you can directly do a lineage from David Bowie to just about every style of music today, whether it's his pop stuff, his rock stuff, his glam stuff, his more punk stuff, his jazz stuff. I would even say parts of it was influenced R&B, which later would probably influence hip hop and stuff like that. Someone like Kanye West came out talking about how he was one of the most influential people in his life. And you can definitely sort of see that with the characters that he plays and the way he sort of creates personas and sculpts his albums. And it's just sad. And, there's, you also touched on a whole lot of great songs. Your top 10 is pretty fantastic, but I think you also missed out on a lot of his most popular ones, I can't remember exactly all the songs that you included, but, stuff like Suffragette City, Genie, Diamond Dogs, Rebel Rebel, Young Americans, Fame, all those songs are just
It is a top 10 though.
Yeah. it's like in the pantheon of some of the greatest pop songs ever written. He sort of rivals up there with the Beatles as far as having so many hits and well-known songs. That's like, you think you know his work, but then you realize you barely have scratched the surface. He recorded a lot of material. So I think this is something that touched everyone in a lot of ways. And all of his songs have special meaning to me. I know I'm not super familiar with all of his albums, but I look forward to going more in depth into some of the ones that I don't know as well, even his lesser albums.
Though to be fair to Andreas, though, it was like one article with like top 10 and songs and albums. I'm sure if Andreas wanted to, he could have written like a whole book on this.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Yeah.
And this morning, actually, I just showed him, and I didn't get a chance to show you, but The Guardian, just this morning, January 16th, Saturday, they released they released a post, and it says it talks about David Bowie's last days, an 18-month burst of creativity. So it's like, yeah, as you were saying, he knew this was going to happen, and the last 18 months, he just wanted to make this the best album he could. And Andres, you reviewed Black Star as well, so as you said, it was like a gift, a farewell gift. So, Andres, what are your thoughts?
Well, the thing about me not mentioning like his impact on popular music, there was a lot of things that I actually wasn't able to mention because he's influenced a lot more than just the music itself. But if you've heard of the Bowie bonds, like he affected like the actual industry, and I could have done a bunch of stuff on that as well. There were just borderline too many things that Bowie actually influenced. So I just
and to be fair, again, you found about it like at like what 1 a.m. and then you sent me your piece at like 3. So you only have so much time in the world.
Well, it's not even just a time-based thing. I mean, I could have, as you said, written a book on him. Like he was my absolute favorite musician, and I guess to prove the point, I mean, I say in my article that I used to come up with like lists and stuff all the time for Bowie. I legitimately have had like his entire albums in order, but his entire discography, I couldn't fit all of that. It would be too much text, and I would have like 25 songs, but again, that'd be too much. So maybe we can create like a Spotify list or something like that. I don't know, but there are just too many great songs, and the top 10 would be absolutely solid because you're talking about a man who could easily have like a top 75. You know what I mean? Like this man has had so many great songs. Like basically all of Ziggy Stardust could fall on that list, in some sort of a way. And Hunky Door, every single song. So it's difficult. There's just too many things to cover with David Bowie. But I decided, many other articles would help achieve that for me because there are just so many perspectives, so many different assets. There's so many things that everybody could have covered with David Bowie. So I figured whatever I missed, somebody else would have picked up on. And it's quite unfortunate that he passed away, but he passed away in the absolute best way David Bowie could have passed away. Like he started releasing music in his late teen years as still Davy Jones, and he literally was an artist until the very last days of his life. And
as an artist, I think that's all you can ask for. That makes so much sense. It's like you started off making music and then 2 days before you pass away, you release an album. I don't think there's a better way to go.
An album and a music video, which was considered one of his most controversial, the Lazarus one. And he and for Bowie, it's highly appropriate because he had a new character. He had stories to tell, as Dakota was saying. It's either quite personal or quite fictitious with whatever he's saying, but all of it ends up being about what he's trying to say about the world and what he's trying to say about himself. So you had everything as Bowie as possible. Black Star, he's dabbled in kind of jazzy stuff before, but not on this level. Like this was a mashup of like what he was maybe doing with Earthling and what he was experimenting with during his compilation era right after The Next Day. And I believe his influences were Kendrick Lamar, Death Grips, Boards of Canada. So at the ripe age of 69, he was dabbling in stuff that's considered quite youthful today, especially death grips, which a lot of people are alienated by. So he was forever being creative, forever experimenting. I guess no pun intended, forever experiencing changes, and that's why Bowie was special.
Absolutely. For me, my favorite song of his is Space Oddity, of course. But actually, my first memory of him was not music, but it was in The Labyrinth in the film.
Mm-hmm.
So he even affects the whole entire film industry as well. And of course, the director of that was Jim Henson. So both very iconic people. That I think, yeah. So like that film heavily influenced like fashion, storytelling, and like cinematics as well. And for me, that's what I remember him, like the initial memory.
I think another thing is he was also in Zoolander, which, you don't think about that being as a very, top of the list as far as cinema studies go. But when I was younger, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, they have that singer David Bowie in it when it first came out. I didn't really understand, but I think Ben Stiller gets a bit of a bad rap for the movies that he directs when they're quite insightful and very scathing towards the things that he wants it to be. And I think having David Bowie as the fashion critic is, that he could have put any, designer or any fashionable person in that movie, but having David Bowie be the arbiter of who is the best model with the best clothes is just so poignant, because he was sort of labeled that, whether he wanted to be a fashion icon or not. I think he always wanted to have style and a character, but I think he was a bit unfairly labeled as, the go-to arbiter of style. So Absolutely. That was a really good thing to include him in that. And I don't know, I haven't heard anything if he filmed anything for Zoolander 2. Did you hear anything about that, Andreas?
I don't believe so, but
that would be pretty wild.
Yeah, you never know, because I don't know how far along the production line that film's coming. I know they started early last year, right?
Yeah, they're done filming it.
So there could be a chance, maybe even a cameo. It's like in the realm of possibility.
There could be, but Dakota hit a very good point. And that's another thing I unfortunately wasn't able to put into my article, because again, there's just too many things that this man did. He was in a number of films, but he's had some of the best casting choices, that I've ever heard of. He was in Labyrinth, he was in Zoolander, but if you look at some of the other things he did, like Last Temptation of Christ, he was basically the figure that challenged Jesus and said, oh, hey, are you who they say they are? And I don't think there are many other pop culture icons that might have been able to have done that other than David Bowie. You had him in a starring role in The Man Who Fell to Earth as an alien figure that is trying to find his place on Earth and fit in properly, which heavily influenced Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson, amongst many other films. You had him playing Andy Warhol after he's created songs sung Andy Warhol's praises for years. He was, what's the movie called? The Prestige. He was in The Prestige as Nikola Tesla. Which, that
was a good movie too. That was a great movie.
You don't have to say much, and that's ideal casting there. He's always played significant figures of some sort, whether they be biographical or fictitious, and he's always played like the voice that challenges, the voice of reason, either a father figure or a figure that damns. Like, he's always been such a poignant force in every single film he's been a part of.
You know what I like about him the most is that he embraces any and all types of medium. Like, there's some artists who are musicians and they go into film, but they don't want any mention of the music, of their musical past. And then there's some who become musicians and they don't want any mention of their film past or any other medium as well. But Bowie was always like, yes, I will take on all of these challenges and I will be the best at all of them. And I will change the world for it.
But he's always the most modest person, because he would never say he's the best. If you ever see interviews with him,
he won't say, but we think so.
Absolutely. He's done a lot of live request shows where he'll play a concert and say, "Hey, what do you guys want to listen to?" He's very interactive with his fans. He was always online with under fake pseudonyms to talk to his fans, see if they were liking whatever he was releasing. That was a big push for Heathen and Reality when those albums came out. He was saying, "What do the fans want from Bowie?" without them knowing they're talking to Bowie. So he'd be in his own chat rooms and everything. And if you finally got a chance to speak to him, he'd be like, "Oh, don't bother. I'm not that great. Just relax, guys." But always a modest person, throughout his entire career. He was truly a gentleman.
I can't even think of another artist who was part of so many things and heavily influenced all of them. Can you? Who even comes close?
That's a good question, because you can argue like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and a lot of other bands from that era, the Velvet Underground.
But were they were they in
influential.
films and stuff too, and like all these different other mediums?
Well, the
some of
Beatles were.
Yeah, the Beatles. Yeah,
but not like this. This
no.
is a bit different. This was a version of the Beatles, Velvet Underground, Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, a version of that for a more contemporary experimental time where it branched out and questioned a lot more. The Velvet Underground had a lot of taboo lyrics, but then David Bowie was actually considered taboo himself at the time. Like, oh, what's his orientation? What's he tried to say? Why is he performing with such and such people? Like, he was questioning things that oddly enough shouldn't have ever been questioned, as we can see now. And that's another thing he pushed for. He pushed for equality in so many different regions of humanity. So I think for our personal generation right now, he was probably one of the more influential peoples. Absolutely.
There's so much more that can be said. What would you say if you could talk to him and say one last thing to him? What would you say, Dakota?
I would just want to talk about how I understand that he stopped touring because he wasn't physically able to do it anymore, but how happy he would have made so many people to do a few one-off shows in his later years. He was definitely someone that I had always hoped to see and always held out that small glimmer of hope. Be like, what music festival is going to offer him an insane amount of money that he won't be able to turn it down to do one last show, whether it's, Coachella or Bonnaroo or Lollapalooza or whatever it might be, and hope that I could go and see that, because he's someone who is just an all-time great performer, and I'm sad I never got the chance to see him.
Andreas, what would you say to him?
I think I would be an odd first. I don't usually get starstruck, but I think I would be. I'd probably murmur something like, "It's an honest pleasure to meet you. You got me through some of the roughest years of my life when I struggled in school and when I just struggled to make friends, and I always kind of felt like an outcast because I got bullied and isolated and left alone for liking the things that I liked. And you were the one true artist that kind of told me and everybody else on a very real level that everybody's special and a star in their own right. So please play more shows. But apart from that, thank you for everything, and I couldn't ask for more."
He's probably jamming out in heaven right now, or wherever he is.
Actually, on that final note, I guess I don't know if you know, but they've actually recreated a constellation just in his honor. Like, they've made like a lightning bolt constellation.
Oh,
now.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. They took a picture of the sky on the day of his death, and they plotted out a new constellation. So it looks like Ziggy Stardust lightning bolt.
Oh my
so
God.
I think that's
cool.
a perfect tribute for him.
That is amazing. Also, Dakota, or Andreas, yes, you mentioned there's also a very sad amount of celebrity deaths that happened recently.
Yeah, it all started off with Lemmy from Motorhead dying at the last days of 2015, and we started off 2016 with a loss of a great David Bowie, and virtually days later, with a fan base I'm not as passionate about, but trust me, millions and millions of people on Earth are. We had the unfortunate passing of the highly talented theater and film actor Alan Rickman, best known for Die Hard, for Harry Potter, and his other many turns as many eccentric film roles with his highly signature voice.
That is great. Yeah, Professor Snape. That's who I know him from. Yeah, it's pretty It's really shocking, and they're all around the same age as well.
Yeah. Again, I wasn't the hugest into Harry Potter. I respected it enough. Dakota, I know you are an actor, and he was highly regarded for his theatrical work and bringing that to a lot of children through Harry Potter. Like, do you have any fond memories of Alan Rickman and his legacy?
Yeah, I think that, he's someone, as an actor, you often get sort of typecast based on your looks or your sounds or things like that. And looking at Alan Rickman, he really isn't that imposing. He's sort of a smaller guy. He looks just like your nice looking uncle or whatever you want to say to describe him. But for some reason, he made a pretty good career out of playing the bad guy. And I think that definitely had to do with using his voice, which is something that he learned how to use and command when in theater. When you're in theater, you really have to work on projecting, and making yourself deeper makes you easier to hear for the audience. And so, you mentioned Die Hard and Harry Potter, but, he was also the bad guy in Sweeney Todd, sort of, depending on how you want to look at who's the bad guy in that movie. But then he also did some other, nice things. I think a lot of people will fondly remember him from Galaxy Quest, where he sort of played completely against character, being this sort of dumb comic relief, which was great to see. I know some people aren't very high on that movie, but it's still got some good laughs in there. And then, he also was able to turn that around and still be a bit of a romantic lead and stuff like Love Actually. So he was pretty well rounded as what he was doing. And I think that's just sort of where the respect comes from. And that someone, you'll look at him, you see him in interviews and whatnot, and you go, wow, this guy's really interesting. I want to get to know him. I want to talk to him. I want to be his friend because he just seems so fascinating. And then you can get so easily lost in his character portrayals. But at the same time, after watching Harry Potter, you're not going like, oh, I don't want to meet that Snape guy. Whoever plays him must be a real jerk, because I think you could still see the reasoning behind all of his character's actions. And that's a really admirable quality and something that not a lot of actors have. So even though he was the bad guy a lot of the times, he still was able to separate the actor from the character, which is a little bit hard to do at times.
Absolutely. And I think another big reason why he was so influential, not just because he brought a lot of heart to the evil roles that he played. A quick aside there. Apparently, he was one of the few people who knew how Harry Potter ended from the start of shooting, like the actual novels themselves, because they weren't finished at times. So he would fight with directors and say, no, Snape wouldn't do this. He's got a motive. And eventually all the directors said, oh my God, he was right. Look at how this ended. So I think another reason why he was so inspirational, though, is he got his big career only at like 46. So he's only been acting and has had such a charismatic and iconic career, especially for a lot of the youth of today, in just over 20 years. So
that is amazing. Yeah.
No, that's terrific. But he's also an inspiration, because how many people would give up if they're not big after 18 or 19 or at most 25? But this man kept fighting until 46 when he finally got put into Die Hard, and that was the end of it. He was cemented into cinema.
That's a really cool story. I didn't know that. Yeah, most people you would think nowadays they would give up after like 30 or something.
Well, he was still doing a lot of theater work and doing work in England as far as TV shows go, the BBC. Like British actors definitely have a completely different world that they live in than they do over here. If you're one of the top theater actors, you can actually make a real living off of that. You can't really do that in Canada, and only a few people can do that in the States. Yeah. So it's something that like you can go ahead and plow ahead and have a really successful career, be well known, and do stuff with the BBC from time to time, because their industry is so small that everyone really does know everyone. But at the same time, it's not like it's super exclusive that like it's impossible to get into. They're a little less superficial as far as what the idea of someone should be, of who they should play.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very sad indeed. Oh, Andreas, did you get a chance to see Motorhead at Riot Fest? I think that was the last time they played here.
I could kick myself as hard as I can, but it won't be hard enough. I was stuck during the Weezer set and I wasn't able to. And I said, oh, well, I know they'll
Did
be
you
back
walk
around.
by their stage? Like, did you at least see them?
No, I was legitimately stuck in the Weezer crowd and I couldn't move.
Oh, that sucks.
I was at the very front for the Pinkerton album being played in full, and I couldn't have left. It was the day afterwards where after the Prodigy interview, I couldn't really get stuck in any of the crowds, and I had to watch everything from afar. I bounced back and forth between Wu-Tang Clan and Weezer, so I might have been able to then, but unfortunately, no. And seeing as what happened now, I couldn't kick myself harder enough.
There's no way you could have known, so.
Yeah, I know. Or with any of these deaths, really. Except with Lemmy, it was a little bit more obvious because he did cancel a few shows, and even during some of his sets, he flat out just said, I can't do this. Literally said, I can't do this anymore. And he left the stage, and that was the end of the show. And a lot of people were like, what's going on with Lemmy? What is this? But he wouldn't say, so.
Well, it's been pretty well known that he's been battling health issues for close to a decade now.
So it was
of some sort, yeah.
Yeah.
Still very sad, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So let's talk about something more, I guess, to brighten up the conversation. There's some summer music festival lineups starting to be released, and Dakota, you wrote about Coachella and the Governor's Ball, and you wrote a reaction piece to each of them just right off the bat. So like the headliners for Coachella, you want to run through the headliners?
Sure. The big three headliners at Coachella are going to be the reunited Guns N' Roses, the reunited LCD Sound System, and then
Calvin Harris.
United with himself, yeah, him and his electronics.
What do you think about this lineup? Is it strong or is it too reunion-y?
I know people on like the internet are gonna complain about Guns N' Roses not being interesting, or Axl Rose hasn't been good in years and all this sort of stuff. And while that might be true, I think they'd be worth seeing just for the novelty of being able to see it. Last year they had AC/DC headlining, so it's not like this is something new that people shouldn't be like shocked by. Overall, their lineup is pretty good. Like when you have like 150 bands playing, you're bound to find some stuff you like, and I'm sure there's a bunch of acts on there that I don't even know about that I probably would like. Overall, I'm not like super crazy about it. Like I would not travel down to Coachella to go see this lineup.
And many of these acts have come through Toronto in individual shows.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like when you look at the poster on like the first glance, it does not look like a Coachella lineup.
It seems to be very heavy on EDM, electronic, dancey stuff like that. While they do have a specific tent for EDM, they're not going to be able to contain all of that. Not that EDM should be contained. But it just seems like it's a little bit lacking on some of the other stuff. Coachella is normally the barometer for what is going to be cool and hip and popular in the next year or so. But it seems like a lot of the names on this lineup played at festivals last year. There's a few really interesting ones like Sufjan Stevens and M83. They've got Ice Cube and Sia and stuff like that. But like almost every other band was at festivals last year, so it's not like you're
maybe that's why
excited.
They were trying to pay up to get some reunited bands to make it try look different.
Maybe. Either way, reunions are always going to be a thing at big festivals, especially Coachella. They've done it a few times, whether it is, Rage Against the Machine a few years ago. I'm blanking on who else has reunited at Coachella, but they've definitely, made a career out of giving headliner spots to bands who have been out of the spotlight for a while.
But as you were saying, yeah, so there's what? Jack U, M83, Disclosure, Zed, who else? Calvin Harris, Major Lazer, Flume. This is like an EDM. Everyone is there. Chainsmokers.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like actual like EDM DJs, the sort of stuff that you'd see at like Veld or Digital Dreams about halfway down.
Yeah, it doesn't
the lineup.
Doesn't look like a Coachella lineup.
It's,
Though
yeah,
they do have some standout bands like Of Monsters and Men Are There. What? Who else? Death Grips is on it. Grimes.
Yeah, they definitely do have some good ones. M83 is definitely, you know, they've been out of the spotlight for several years, working on their new album, and they've been popping up at a bunch of different festivals. So they're definitely, you know, a big get that I think people are excited about because it's been about 4 years since they've toured.
Holy crap! Alicia Cara is like so far down the line. I had to like bring up the monitor to read it. Wow.
Yeah, there's a few Canadians. I talked about which Canadians are going to be playing there. They've also got Purity Ring is going to be there. Alicia Cara is there as well. I think there's two more big Canadian. Oh yeah, Grimes is going to be there, and there's one more Canadian. I'm looking over the lineup right now, and I can't even think about who that might be. But yeah, they definitely do got some Canadian acts, which is nice. Normally they're pretty big on having some good international stuff. Oh, they've got Bad, Not Good. That's the last one.
Wow. Yeah. On the other hand,
and Always. Wow.
Always. Yeah. But on the other hand, there's the Governor's Ball, and this one actually is impressive.
Yeah, it's really great. You know, I made a joke in my review of the lineup because Kanye is headlining. You know,
run through the headliners first.
Okay, well, the three headliners are going to be Kanye, The Strokes, and The Killers, with Beck as the fourth headliner sort of thing. And I made a joke about Kanye being like, okay, well, if you're looking at a lineup poster and you see Kanye West first on the lineup, you either don't have to read any more names because you're so excited and that's the festival you want to go to, or you see Kanye West first on the lineup and you don't want to read the rest of the names because you do not want to go to that festival. That's the sort of reaction he has with people. And all three of us are sort of on the same page of liking Kanye.
I would go.
Like, yeah, it's like Kanye headlining. All right, let's see who else is going. This has my attention.
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting is the Killers, though, because we just saw Brandon Flowers do his solo performance at Way Home.
Yeah, he was at a couple festivals last year. I caught about half of his set at Way Home, and I thought he was pretty good. It wasn't really Killers-y. It was definitely more sort of glam rock, not in a killer sense. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. Did you see a set at all?
Yeah, we were there in the front row. I made Andreas wait for like half an hour, and we ate pizza in the front.
Yeah, I think he was a really good front man, and put on a good solo show. I wasn't crazy about his solo album.
Yeah, I don't recall Andreas being super happy about that,
but I still think overall his performance level was pretty strong. And I think people are going to be really excited about the Killers coming back, even though they haven't released any new material in years. They are apparently working on some new stuff. You know, people might scoff and be like, Killers, they haven't been relevant for a long time. But then, you know, you sort of run through their big songs and you're like, all right, yeah, I'd sit through that set. That's a pretty stacked list of songs to play.
Yeah, I like the Killers. Yeah, for sure. So, Andreas, after you heard the headliners from both of these big festivals, and you can bet that a lot of these will trickle down into other festivals and even the Canadian ones coming up. What do you think of the bands to come at festivals in 2016?
Like whoever's performing, like who I'm excited for, or I think it's quite interesting because a lot of the
which of these festivals would you go to, knowing of these lineups?
I think Dakota hit it on the head. Governor's Ball, simply because I saw Kanye West and I thought, oh damn, okay, Kanye West and a bunch of other artists. Oh, I'm going, you know. But I wish I could. But most likely Governor's Ball. But speaking of festivals, actually, I know Dakota here is very fond of Bonnaroo. Did you see that a huge chunk of the lineup leaked through
I did.
Bonnaroo?
Yeah. Do you are you surprised that I would not know that? Like, of course I'd be all over that.
So who's on it?
No, but it's radio speak. It's to lead in, I guess. So.
Well, the headliners were already leaked about a month ago, but they're going to be once again LCD Sound System, the reunion of Pearl Jam, and the bowing out of Dead and Company, which is the Grateful Dead with some other people helping out with them, including John Mayer.
Ooh. That's kind of interesting.
And then there's a whole bunch of other bands that are playing. Are
you excited to go? Did you get tickets?
No, I've not got tickets yet. I'm still deciding whether or not I'm going to go this year.
Wait. So it's been, how many years have you gone in a row?
I've gone 3 out of 4 years.
You're going to break the streak?
Well, I already broke the streak once, but yeah, I might. It all depends. I like the lineup. I'm not super crazy about it. I think my problem was last year I went to too many festivals. Between Bonnaroo and Way Home and Turf and
yeah, but that's the fun part.
Digital Dreams and Veld and all that sort of stuff that like I've seen a lot of the bands. So now I'm looking at the lineups, being like, oh yeah, I like a lot of these names, but how many of them would be new to me?
Are you becoming one of those cynical music journalists now? It's like, oh, I've seen that, done that, blah blah blah.
No, I will never be that way. I hope not, at least. But like, I look at for a festival to get my money, especially in the US, which is going to cost more, and
the exchange rate
time. Yeah, there has to be something that has to really appeal to me. I look at the Governor's Ball. I've never seen The Strokes or Beck.
Oh, so would you use your Bonnaroo money for Governor's Ball?
I would consider
it's closer to, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot closer. The problem is I'd have to find somewhere to stay, which would cost more because it's New York.
Well, it's Randall's Island. You can just ask him.
Yeah, maybe I will.
He owns the island.
Very fun.
It says Randall's Island.
Well, that's I guess.
So it's just tough for me where like I look at them and it's now counting who haven't I seen. I think Governor's Ball and Sasquatch out in Seattle have the two best lineups so far, better than the leaked Bonnaroo lineup.
Right now, I would definitely go to Governor's Ball out of those two.
Let's make a class trip.
Exactly.
Okay,
let's all go. Come on, Miss Frizzle. Yeah. Let's go to a ball.
All right, let's talk about movies now. Do you guys like Cloverfield? Because the trailer for Cloverfield 2, the sequel, it's actually called 10 Cloverfield Lane.
I think you'll be the most excited person on the website.
So, Andreas, did you like it?
I liked it. I didn't love it. I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. I liked the idea. I thought the execution wasn't as great as it could have been.
What about you, Dakota? Did you see Cloverfield?
Yeah, I saw it. I watched it several years after it came out.
And you loved it?
No.
Okay, and honestly, I don't remember a whole bunch of it, but I think I enjoyed the viral build-up to it more than anything.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams has always had really great marketing for the movies and TV shows he's been involved in. So, that's something I will never deny him. The lead up to that was quite fantastic. It's a shame that it didn't quite live up to all the viral marketing that they had set out for it.
Yeah, and this one looks to be the same. It comes out in 2 months, it's pretty amazing how they kept it secret for so long. Comes out in March. I'm going to be there.
There you go. Maybe you can do your first film review for us.
I told Dakota, I'm going to do that. Yes, okay, mark my words. I will do that. Remind me to do that.
Yeah, we'll put you down for that. So when we get invites to go cover it, we'll say, okay, Sean Chin, editor-in-chief, will be there.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, actually. Yes, very good. All right, so you two did a really good Oscar, how do you call it? Nomination reaction podcast on ContraZoom. Link in the show notes. That was really good. That came out really quickly. And Andreas, you did your reaction post within a few minutes of it happening. So on that, that was pretty amazing. And we won't go into too much of the Oscars here because you already did that on the podcast. But what I want to do is talk about the winners of the Golden Globes, and those winners are a good indication, hopefully, of who will win an Oscar. Namely, maybe Leonardo DiCaprio may finally win an Oscar.
Yeah, it depends on what it is.
Yeah, to be fair, the Golden Globes, a lot of people put stock into them, but It's sort of tough. It's not a real good predictor about who's going to win or even nominations for other awards and things like that, because it is voted on by what's called the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which means
what do they mean by foreign?
It means non-American. So there's a very small group of non-American journalists who basically decide the nominees and winners. And that's why a lot of the times you'll get some very surprising nominations or winners, because it's effectively for a way to them to promote themselves. So you get some weird celebrities who are nominated even though their movies were absolutely terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And not even just that. The separation of comedy and drama as well can either be a bit of an indication, like, okay, it's between these two actresses, like, for instance, Jessica Chastain winning for Zero Dark 30 and Jennifer Lawrence winning for Silver Linings Playbook. That actually was a bit of a battle that year, who would win between those two. But then you have an instance where, they'll win just because they're in the comedy field, but they might not even get nominated at all for the Oscar. It's something to take very lightly. I mean, we talked about this briefly in our Oscar podcast. Something like DiCaprio winning, he's won. You can't just look at the Golden Globes. You have to look at everything else they're winning. He's won a big amount of other awards already for Best Actor, so that's why he's got a great chance. But to a lot of casual viewers, the Golden Globe would be their opportunity to say, okay, he's got a chance. Whereas somebody like Sylvester Stallone winning a Golden Globe was kind of out of left field. Like, there's a lot of actors who are quite sought after in that category, like Mark Rylance for Bridge of Spies. So the fact that Stallone won, I mean, even he was shocked. So, I mean, who knows there? It doesn't mean he's got a great chance of getting an Oscar for that, which I'm surprised he got nominated at all, actually. And I think Dakota's in the same boat, but it really depends. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Forgive my naiveness here, but so this is U.S. films voted on by foreign press or any kind of movie?
Yeah, that's
just
basically
U.S.
it.
Just U.S. films.
Yes,
so technically,
they do have a foreign language film category, but it has to do with, like, journalists from France and Italy and things like that.
What about Canada?
I don't know. Who cover the Golden Globe, who cover the Hollywood system. So it is American awards awarded by foreign writers.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. All right, so which one of you wants to run through, like, the big category award winners? Andreas, you want to run?
I guess off the top of my head, the biggest winner that day was The Revenant. It won for Best Picture. Alejandro G. Iñárritu won for Best Director. And DiCaprio actually won for Best Actor. So I think out of the biggest awards, it did the best.
I really liked The Revenant. It was good. Did you watch it, Dakota?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, not yet. I guess you have to soon.
Mm-hmm.
Andreas, you liked it?
Absolutely. No, I've seen it 3 times already.
I really wanted to buy a pelt coat after.
Well, I don't think that's the point of the movie, Sean.
It just looks really warm.
I think. We obviously have to watch as many as we can for the Oscar roundtable, and
I think I'm on a good track.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to do something this year that you've managed to do, and you've watched basically as many nominees as possible, including all of the shorts, including the one-off films that might have like a costume nomination. I want to be able to do as many of that as possible. So, how difficult is it to do that? Because I know you get pretty close.
It can be a little bit difficult at times where, I'll spend an entire weekend watching, 6, 8, 9 movies, especially in the lead up. It's all about being able to find them. I make good on all my Cineplex scene points and things like that, and take advantage of anything that I can. I usually am able to see the shorts by going to the TIFF Bell Lightbox. They usually air the animated and live action shorts, and frankly, they're just amazing to see at all, because it's real great movie making that is not being. They're not worried about the Hollywood system and reactions and things like that. So it's just great little stories that are being told. And I can't recommend them enough to anyone, really.
Absolutely. And they show all of the shorts there. They show the animated, the documentary, and the live action.
No, they do not usually show the documentaries.
Okay. Right. So how do you go about seeing the documentaries then?
The documentary shorts, I usually don't. Last year I was able to see a bunch. I think I watched 3 of the 5 by I was renting them on Vimeo and stuff like that because that's where they were. There's just weird rights issues about them being able to be shown in Canada and movie theaters and stuff like that because shorts are usually sold to either TV stations or websites or things like that. So they
What about like iTunes
content.
or something? Are they on there?
They might be. It all depends on who they sign contracts with. Last year I watched 3 of them on Vimeo, which means they wouldn't have been on iTunes.
Yeah, that's weird. I hate those regional contractual things.
It's how the system works, unfortunately. And without something like, big movies where they're able to afford to sell it to multiple places, usually shorts are only able to be sold to one place at a time. So that's why they're a little bit harder to come by. And then, of course, if you're internet savvy, you'll be able to find other ones if you wish.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what I was really happy for at the Golden Globes was Sylvester Stallone winning for Creed.
Really? I think...
Why?
I don't know. He finally gets something cool.
He has an Oscar.
I know, but this is also really cool. And this is for a Rocky film that's not titled after Rocky. It's titled after Creed. Yeah, he's still Rocky, but the film is not Rocky.
But why?
He's Sylvester.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Let me change my question. I was really happy that Kate Winslet won for Best Supporting Role for Steve Jobs.
I can agree with.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yes, but I'm sad that Fassbender didn't win. But happy Leon won, so it's kind of weird.
I think the only person deserving of winning over Fassbender this year is Leonardo DiCaprio, so I'm okay with that.
If you look at the 2 roles, though, from the 2 films, like Fassbender had so much dialogue, way more than normal for a film, and then Leo had less dialogue.
But that's harder. Like he acted with his facial expressions, but without giving too much away. Because I know Dakota and a lot of the listeners haven't seen this yet. He does a lot to communicate outside of just talking. So I think that alone is quite remarkable.
Same like Mad Max, Tom Hardy.
Which I'm glad he got nominated for, by the way. He got nominated for The Reverend in his supporting role. I'm glad.
Well, yeah, for that. But I mean, like for Mad Max, like less talking in the lead role.
That was a bit different. I think Max is a bit ruthless and blunt, so he kind of just grunts at everything. Like he kind of like points his gun at somebody and like grunts to tell them to go somewhere else. So,
that's sort of like Tom Hardy's calling card these days. Because I don't know if you guys saw Lawless. He didn't really talk a lot. He grunted a lot. The same thing with
like on the screen
Dark Knight Rises.
On the what's it called? The screenplay? Like what's the script? Does it just say like brackets grunt bracket?
No, I think that's just Tom Hardy.
Those are usually acting choices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He either grunts or he doesn't have a voice that's able
his signature.
To be like you can't understand what he's saying at all. Apparently a lot of people had a hard time with The Revenant understanding him. I was fine, but then if you look at something like Dark Knight Rises, half of it's just like, so that one. It's like, whoa, what in God's name is he saying? He's the only person more incomprehensible than Christian Bale doing the Batman voice. Honestly, it was difficult, but
that's pretty funny.
I like his eccentric choices, though. I think they're either hits or misses, and I'm glad that with The Revenant it was a hit.
All right, that sounds good, and we look forward. When's the Oscars again?
February 28th.
Yeah, it's the last Sunday in February.
So that's like next month. Yeah, February.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you better start watching those films, Sean.
Did you? Yeah, I'm gonna get on that now. So all the nominees are out. I'm gonna go check that out and then watch all of them. Hopefully, I'll get some of them.
Yeah, you better be prepared for our Oscar roundtable over on ContraZoom.
Yes, so in the last 2 years, the Oscar roundtable was hosted on Capsule, but now since we have an amazing, dedicated, super popular, award-winning podcast called ContraZoom, well, not yet, soon, eventually, but we'll do that on that show.
Yeah, after this episode especially, it's going to be quite accoladed. So.
I'm pretty excited. We're going to be, as we talked about earlier, we just had the Oscar nominations reaction podcast, and I'm sure we'll probably be doing some other stuff. And then, of course, we're going to have the Oscar roundtable, and we'll basically
think of a way to not make it 2 hours long.
Who knows? Maybe what we'll do is we'll break it up into 2 parts, although that doesn't really work because it'll only be coming out before the Oscars. I don't know. We'll figure something out, but I like it. We're also probably going to have another special guest as our 4th person, which I'm excited for. I'll keep that under wraps just in case anything changes.
We have featured them before, though. That's a hint.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, I think this is going to be the year of ContraZoom. So watch out, Capsule.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. Brother, sibling rivalry is always good. All right.
Take a step back, Capsule.
All right, Andreas, where can all of our listeners find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at Andreas Babs.
And you, Dakota? People want to stalk you?
Yeah, you can stalk me all you want. You can find me on Twitter at DGAPA. And please make sure that you subscribe and listen to ContraZoom, our film podcast. There's going to be tons of great content coming up. Our next episode is going to be about Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is going to be pretty exciting.
I still need to see that.
You haven't seen that yet?
No.
You're like one of 5 people in the world who hasn't seen it.
I know.
The other 4 are like homeless people in India.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll get to it eventually. And you can find myself on Twitter at Sean Chin. Please follow the show at Live in Limbo and use the hashtag Capsule Podcast to join in on the conversation. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, give us 5 stars, leave us some nice words in the review section. And as always, you can find the show notes at liveinlimbo.com/capsule. Take care.